or something?
It's in the back of one of those folders, mate.
What are you talking about?
There's like a 90-page PowerPoint slide that I'm going to go over.
Right.
It's in those folders. I think if you look at one of those folders, and it'll be there.
If I go into Jill's, is that what Jill shared with me this morning?
Possibly. We're live, Timmy.
Okay.
Chat. Do we have a Q&A? Yeah, cool. Rightio. Cool. All right, can everyone hear me okay? Is that fine? Can I just bang something into the chat if everyone can hear? Hopefully. Don't be scared. Tight lines. Yep, sure can. Bing, bing, bing. Cool. All right, thanks, Beck. Thank you very much. I'm slowly but surely getting more tech savvy, folks, which is interesting. Marcus, hey, bud. Paul, Sky, Jenny, James, g'day, guys. Craig. We might just, we'll wait 1 or 2 minutes, guys. I've had the phone's kind of lit up this morning with people saying, hi, Ange. With people saying, I'll make sure I get there. I'll make sure I get there. So we'll just see how time goes. And we'll kick things off in a little bit. So I might, where are we at? 17, 19, 21. This is also apparently on Facebook Live. So we're testing and trialing that and slowly getting better at what we're doing with all these. So if someone can test that it's on there, it'll ultimately end up on YouTube as well. And we're getting more and more organised. So this is the first real educational webinar. So for those of you that are on it, congratulations. You're part of the first of many. Of the people that have said hi, they're in. Who has received, have you received your workbook? Yes, cool. Brownie, g'day, legend. All right. We're bang on 2. We might it's a little bit weird. I'm normally the one that's always late. So this is good. G'day, Catherine. Hope you guys are well. Certainly been an interesting week. That's for sure. For those that yes received, all good here on John's behalf. Yeah, no problems, Catherine. This will all be recorded too, folks. Not that I want to convince you not to tune in, but this will definitely be recorded. Hey, Charles. Yeah, this will all be recorded, and there'll be extra stuff that will come out of it. 2:01. We'll give everyone one more minute. It looks as though there's a few names on there that I haven't seen click in yet, which are definite. Just keeps ticking and ticking and ticking and ticking. All right. Yes, Melissa, I saw that for you. You registered about 30 minutes ago. Naughty, naughty. Let me see if I can get that to you, Melissa, very quickly. Bang. There you go, Melissa. Hopefully I've got you for that. D-Mac, g'day, buddy. All right, folks, it's 2:02, so I'm going to get into this one. I think if I can also get, if I can do this, and I can do this, and I can hit share. All right, so I'm hoping everyone can see that second screen. I'll keep the Q&A stuff open at the same time somehow. We've got to get better at this. Q&A, where's the chat one? Participants, yeah, okay. All right, so, and the chat bot, there it is, cool. All right, D-Mac, you're killing me. Hey, what did your last secretary die of? D-Mac. There you go, mate, send over to you now. All right, folks, I'll frame up what we're about to talk about here today. I need to get that one over here, actually. I'll frame up what we're about to talk about here today and then go from there. First and foremost, hopefully, can everyone see the second video? Can everyone see Tim? There's two of us with a hat. He's the good-looking bloke. He's got the headphones on. If someone can hit us to say, no, Charles, you can't see Tim. Tim, is there a button somewhere for you to turn your screen on at all, mate? Turn your video on? Video settings. You can't. You can see him when he talks. Yeah, it's like that in the office, Sky. He kind of just appears out of nowhere. Well, look, we'll do this, folks. We'll move forwards, and Timmy, you'll chime in at points in time, and we'll get it to switch to you.
Yeah,
sure,
well,
that'll be another thing that we just need to work out as we go. He was there before you and shared the screen. Thanks, Lars. All right, folks. So first and foremost, I've got Tim Huett with me here today. Timmy heads up our CFO area. So Timmy has an ex-banking background. He was actually at Macquarie Bank for an extended period of time. And when all those big fancy investment bankers at Macquarie would go and buy all these significant assets and try and bolt them together and make a bunch of money out of it, they'd crush ahead and buy everything. And then 3 to 6 months later, they'd tell Tim's department that he's got to tidy it all up, and they'd have to put organisation, process, reporting, everything in between. Sometimes they do it the other way too. I shouldn't say that at Macquarie Bank, actually. But Tim's role is to help organise information. And that's very much what the role, I think, or where the role of the accountant needs to be these days. Accounting and tax is one piece to all of that. And yes, at points in time, we need specialist knowledge. If you've got a bunch of smart people that are doing that, they need to stay in that wheelhouse. The area that we're talking about here today is not so much tax law, it's more about organising information, which is numbers, which dovetails into accounting, but it's a whole different spectrum of where the accounting world thinks. So Tim's role in our business, along with his team, is to help our clients organise their information better. Now, sometimes for some of you, that might mean you operate your business out of a different platform. You won't use My Old QuickBooks Xero. You might use some sort of CRM to be able to do that, or schedule work and how that looks, or order stock, or have online businesses, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's about making sure that's organised, as well as your financial information, and how do those two marry together. So if I can very much get everyone in the mindset of saying that today's about breaking down some steps on how we organise our information better. Once the information's organised better, we can then make better decisions. Once we make better decisions, we'll feel a lot clearer when we wake up in the morning. When we feel a lot clearer when we wake up in the morning, we then know what we need to do for that day, week, or month. We've got more certainty at a time when there's so much uncertainty. And this is a piece that constantly changes. It's also something we'll talk about later today, which is some of this information could be information you share with your team. I actually heard some varying views on this, and I've heard a few shockers, if I was being completely honest, where I've heard stories of people simply getting out their P&L and showing it to their staff with a loss at the bottom and saying, there you go, I'm not making any money. How does that really help your team member understand what the business needs to do to get through? If we can focus team members on top line, i.e. widgets and sales or efficiency targets, if we can get them focused on those things, rather than, here we go, there's a giant big loss at the end of the month, that's going to allow them to be able to see, well, how can they contribute to your business getting through this point in time? Not only that, I'm not convinced when people do that information is always organised. So let's frame today with the concept of organising information. And I've shared a screen here, which is, I don't even know how to pronounce that name, Gleacher. Gleacher's formula for change. Can everyone see that? Someone let me know they can, so we know the system works. Yep, great. So this is an important, we use this formula all the time, folks, in our own business. And this is actually, we talk about this in our own business for people coming to MWM as a client, but it has application in so many ways, because not only is it about people changing, wanting to come to a different accounting practice, which can seem daunting, which it isn't, but it's also then about changing behaviour patterns. And for me at the moment, we need to change behaviour patterns. That's what we're trying to understand and establish, because the whole world has suddenly changed. So what does that behavior pattern look like? And this is a cool little formula that I share with my team, which is around change. Now, we're all creatures of habit. Accountants in particular are fucking creatures of habit. We're really good at that because we like system and process and routine. But right now we need to adapt and be agile, and we need to do that on a daily and weekly basis. We need to have some longer term certainty, but we also need to know every day at the moment, we might wake up and go, what the fuck is going to happen today? And who's going to punch me in the face, or who's going to pull the rug out from underneath me, or am I going to have some wins? So formulas for change is pretty easy. Dissatisfaction by a vision of what's possible by first steps needs to be greater than the resistance for change. People just don't like change because change is what change is. But our dissatisfaction at the moment is how everything's operating. Our vision of the future is getting through. So sometimes we need to make sure that the pain to get through is going to be greater than the pain to change. And I think if you can share that with your team members when we're going on this journey today, that's really going to help give them some purpose and focus, and yourself some purpose and focus. I've had a look at the attendee list, a couple hundred people on that list, which is fantastic. I will say there's a couple of people on that list who have seen what I'm about to present. What I'm about to present is a whole day course. It was originally a 2-day course, which has been condensed into 1 day. What we're going to attempt to do in 50 minutes is go over an entire day of information. I know that that's a lot to digest. What I plan on doing is being able to demonstrate the concepts. Today is about concepts and giving you some framework and some structure. Once you have that framework and structure, each of these individual concepts, we are then going to look to hold individual ones of these to go over those specific concepts. There's 7 points to today. Each of those modules is normally a couple of hours long. So you're going to have to make sure you're really focused and listen up because I'll roar through it really quickly. The Q&A bot is there, so put your questions in the Q&A area as you're going. Don't put it in the webinar chat. This is also a great tool for those of you that have seen it already before for you to potentially share with team members. It's being recorded. It's up on our platforms. We now have an MWM YouTube channel, and there's going to be a James Marshall. It's at the Not So Boring Accountant. Yes, all of a sudden I have Instagram, a YouTube channel where all of this stuff will be posted. So if I go through it too quickly, you can refer back to it at the end. You can also share it with other people. Sometimes we take information from days like today, and then we try to explain it to someone else, and we kind of take 80% of that information, and then we go forwards, and they end up taking on 80% of it, and we don't achieve our outcome. This is a reference point and reference tool for you. It's free. Share it to as many people as you like. Use the workbook to be able to do that, to share it with as many people as you like. Use it as a reference tool. You can even potentially show this to your team. These are the things that I'm currently doing to keep my business going so that we've all got roles in some way, shape or form moving forwards. I'll also use this as a plug for Sunday, 2 p.m. Sunday, 2 p.m., I have a book that is no bullshit about that thick that we're going to go over as many of the stimulus measures as possible. We're doing a trial run Q&A tomorrow for 90 minutes internally at MWM. The team is going to hack me as hard as they can on their knowledge so that we can make that 90 minutes of jam-packed information for stimulus. Once we've done that 90 minutes, we will also then be looking at breaking out each of those individually along the way. You can also share that so that it helps businesses get through. This is not a marketing and a PR exercise for us, folks. This is very much about trying to give back and be able to help you guys navigate through what's extremely hard at the moment. I have a business myself. I've had to port 25 plus people out of the office in the last 3 weeks. We're doing our best to do that. And I've said to all of my team that my commitment is I want all of them in their roles and all of us to come out the other side. And I'll do whatever I need to and sacrifice whatever I personally need to make sure we do the best thing for the organisation to survive. That may also mean some hard decisions internally at some point, but we're wanting to get through this. And if this information can be shared for you to do it, that's fucking fantastic. All right, so there's our formula for change. From here, folks, I'll make sure I've covered off on the right things. Here to help, framework, yes, there's repeats of this on MWM's YouTube and Facebook page, and also the Facebook and YouTube. Framework baseline, share it with people. At the end of this, we're going to also go over the fact that if this is too much information and you want us to help navigate through that, Tim and his team will be positioned to help everyone with 2-hour meetings where we can effectively pull apart what we're currently doing and have a cut down, simplified version of how to get you through these next couple of weeks. Once that's done, it may be then an opportunity for you to give a variety of areas in your business a birthday, which we are here to support you with. But understand that we've got Tim at the end of this and his team who are all based here. They're all part of MWM to support our clients to be able to step through that. So I want you all to turn to your workbook now, and I'm going to pull up our PowerPoint slide. So I'll come all the way back, folks. Gee whiz, I've got a fair way to go. Might be easier if I do this and I come here from current slide. Something's going on there. There we go. Great example of technical difficulties. Why do I not get out of that one? And then, okay, here we go, folks. Sorry, bear with me. From current slide. There we go. Righto. All right, folks, so let's get into it. So this is normally how we would run components of this day. So turn your phones off, get focused. Framing today is really important. So I'm going to spend about 20 minutes understanding these concepts because I'm then going to go through really quickly what break-even is or isn't. So bear that in mind. Right now, let's go through all of our concepts and what they look like. First case in point, good old Buffett. If you can't read the scoreboard, you don't know the score. If you don't know the score, you can't tell the winners from the losers. Those of you that don't know who Buffett is, Warren Buffett's one of the biggest, if not the biggest value investors in the world. He's, at this point in time, he was worth over 60 billion. That was about 18 months ago. Who knows what that is right now? Really important. Kiyosaki, here's a good one. This will appeal to all of you out there. Accounting is possibly the most boring subject in the world. It's confusing, but if you actually want to make money, as we're all realizing, it's extremely, extremely important. This is how I need you to think about everything, right? We're Australians. Australians are known for going on holidays. At the moment, it's a bit difficult. But prior to COVID-19, we all love our holidays. So we all go to countries overseas. When we go to those countries overseas, we don't actually know the entire language. And that's what this slide is demonstrated to tell us, is that you could go to another country and nothing makes sense. That's like accounting. You start talking accounting, none of it makes sense. However, if you go to that country and you can understand 5 or 6 key principles, where's the toilet, please, thank you, where's a taxi, how do I get to the airport, where's my hotel, you can navigate yourself around the city. The same concept exists with accounting. So don't make it daunting that all of a sudden you think you need to know 800,000 things. Think of this as going on a holiday, albeit an extremely weird holiday, Jumanji at best. And let's understand that we want to get those 5 or 6 key terms. So that's what we're going to go through in the first instance. This is a bit of a pitch for making sure you make the investment in this stuff. The famous Reddit Air quote, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional to do a job, wait until you fire an amateur. That's not necessarily a plug to use us, folks. That's a plug for you to realize you need to be committed to investing time in this. Business owners get really good, really good at getting a list of all the 10 things they need to do. Absolutely great at it. But they look at that list and they end up choosing potentially things 3, 4, 5 instead of things 1 and 2 on that list because they hate it, it's not them, they don't get enjoyment out of it, and they don't see the value. All of these principles we're explaining today should have always been in a business, and I've been running these styles of seminars for about 5 years now. So these shouldn't be new concepts. It's simply the case that the money's dried up, so everyone's finally really looking at this. So be prepared to invest some time in it. And it's great that you're here doing that because you're 100 steps ahead of everyone else. All right, so 3 most important things. You should have your workbooks in front of you. Workbook, why our numbers are so important. We should have our first page. Yeah, wherever that is. Why our numbers are so important. As a result of that, folks, our numbers are super important. So turnover is vanity, profit sanity, cash is king. I think everyone's worked out as of right now, the third one's the most important thing. Take that saying away. We will manage to get to cash today. We had a building example, key financial reports. Let's think of this as a dashboard, and this is ultimately where we want to go. The analogy is driving a car. When you drive a car, you look at 3 or 4 key things. Our P&L is how fast we're going. Our balance sheet is how much pressure is in our business. And our cash flow is our petrol tank. If we run out of petrol, we run out of cash flow, everything else falters. So we want to get across these core 3 things. How fast is our business traveling? So first and foremost, we've got sales. I don't think we need that one. Hang on. I'll have to skip forward one. Sorry, folks. I'm trying to do all of this as quickly as possible in the last couple of days. So we want to get clear on, we can easily establish where our sales are. This one's a big one. I don't see this enough in business. So on the 4th page of your workbook, we'll have this thing called cost of sales. So many times in clients' accounts, I don't see a delineation between fixed hard costs that they have in their business versus variable costs that are specific to each job. That can be widgets, it can be stock, it can be specific labor, it can be subcontractors, it can be materials. We need to get clear in our accounts and have a clear delineation of those 2. So make sure that we've got that. Overheads, this is the big one. These are our fixed overheads. So this is all the stuff that whether you like it or not, you have to pay for every single month. Now, some of those might have obligations like rent, for an example, where you have the ability at the moment to defer that. So that may change those things. But we want to get clear that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in fact, potentially a 6th type of income or expense in our business. Gross profit, so they're all quite straightforward. All right, the next big one, the matching principle. I spoke about this the other day. The matching principle is a really big one. And the reason the matching principle is a really big one is I don't see this enough in clients' accounts. I pulled up some accounts on Sunday and I'll demonstrate it again. You'll all be using different software platforms. So some of you use Xero, some of you use QuickBooks or MyOb or MyOb AE or some of the bigger CRM programs or ERPs that are built in play. The next critical thing that a lot of people don't understand in their business, and let's pick these 2 months as an example. So I managed to pull up a monthly P&L here for the last 8 months. And in this business in particular, in the month of October, we've had $195,000 in sales. But in the month of November, we've only had $9,000 in sales. And then in the month of December, we've had 522. Now, it's actually the case in this business. This is not a retail business. So this is a business that builds homes. That it could have been the case that in this month, the builder didn't raise a progress claim, but they still had costs to incur. So is it the case that they're not raising an invoice at the end of the month? And if so, it makes this month look really ordinary. If we come to the next month, this month then looks really good. If it's the case in your business that we have a difference between these 2, which clearly demonstrates it, what we ultimately need to look at is this thing called cash versus accrual accounting, which is at what point are we raising invoices or recognizing in our accounts when work is being performed or is actually due and owing to us versus when that money physically hits the bank account. That's a really big one at the moment because we've got 2 different things going on. When are my invoices being raised versus when is my cash hitting my bank account? If that appeals to you, make sure you're listening because in a little bit, we'll be talking about what steps we can take right now to get rid of that uncertainty in relation to those things. The matching principle is also really important. It's also really important, folks, because we see from time to time clients' end of month process isn't great. And what I mean by that is you may order things on account and you might pay for them in 30 to 60 days time. However, you've incurred that expense in 1 month, but you've then paid for it in another month down the track. That can also create an element of uncertainty in our clients' accounts. And it's a great opportunity if you pay for if you order anything on account, we need to, at this point in time, be making sure that we're super comfortable that at the end of the month, our supplier statements that come in, one by one, are ticked off and checked off against all of our invoices for the month. So often I see it the case that clients won't necessarily trust an accounting system to do that. It can be done. Garbage in is garbage out. So it needs to be set up correctly so that you can get more accurate results. Because if you're not demonstrating the month that expense was incurred, but the invoicing is in that month, then we're going to have too much of a delineation in relation to the data. That is another important thing for us to look at, and our software can fix it. Back to our PowerPoint. All right, there's your matching principle example. So if you have, generally speaking, one of these 4 styles of businesses, then that is the case for you that we need to look at that. If you use stock, if you have fixed assets, if you have debtors and creditors, i.e. you invoice on account, if you have prepayments or accruals, our P&L. So this becomes a little bit hard with the graphic in the background. But the graphic in the background is trying to explain to us that there's 2 ways we can do this. We can actually set up your software so that you have a very, very simple version of information, or you have a detailed version. Everyone needs to understand, and I want everyone to work backwards when we go through this exercise a little bit later on. When you pull up all this information in your MyOb, your QuickBooks, or your Xero, I've seen some of these are what we call chart of accounts. This is what we code things as. I've seen these in clients lists end up being 300, 400, 500 line items long. That becomes really hard for you to view easy and accurate information. And what we can instead do is we can actually also group types of expenses so that you can look at a total and pull up a report and generate a report at the drop of a hat to give you totals of areas rather than individual broken down pieces which make the information really long. Here's another thing for you to think about. The more accounts you have to choose from, the greater the chance of you coding something to a different account in a following month, which means we don't get to see consistency in relation to our accounts. That is such a big thing at the moment when people are trying to work out their break even. They are realizing their data is not going in the right way, which means we can't easily pull the data out the right way. Garbage in is garbage out. Very, very important. So not only that, we actually want to resemble the specific types of income that we want to keep track of, the specific types of variable costs we want to keep track of, the specific types of fixed costs. There is no one rule of thumb. We're not listed on the stock exchange, so we don't have to comply with certain accounting standards. This should make sense to you. What we will be doing at the end is I will be showing everyone you can ignore all this shit, completely disregard it, and do a budget by hand and establish what it is that's important to you in your business. We can then get the budget that you create in your own way. We can then use this information to disseminate it and get the two to marry up. But we can very easily achieve an outcome simply by writing stuff down in our workbook and listing everything out. There we go, over there. All right, moving on. What our P&L should include, stock control. Okay, this is the next thing we need to understand. So this is our balance sheet. I briefly spoke about this the other day. If there are any accounts in your financial statements, when you pull up a balance sheet as of today, that you do not understand, there is a chance your profit and loss statement will be incorrect. If information, I'll say that once more, If there are things on your balance sheet that you do not understand or you do not think are correct, then you may not be looking at accurate information. Right now, all of the really big businesses of the world and all the companies listed on the stock exchange, etc., are understanding this equation, because this equation demonstrates if as of tomorrow I had to shut the doors, what's left behind. And this is a snapshot of any of our fixed assets, our current assets. So that's, for example, so this is page 6, guys. Fixed assets, so that includes things like land, building, plant and equipment, cars. Current assets, that's things that we can easily convert into cash. So that resembles bank accounts, that resembles stock, that resembles work in progress. Current liabilities are things we need to pay really quickly, so we need to pay them in the next 12 months. Long-term liabilities are things like bank loans. There's a bunch of extra calculations on this page that I'm going to skip through for the moment. And I'm simply going to skip through that because I feel that right now that's not the pertinent things. We will be running a specific seminar on what that is. So there's our fixed assets, current liabilities, long-term. Is our balance sheet reconciled? So that's what we're talking about here, folks. We need to make sure that all those numbers make sense. A scary thing in relation to this is also stock control. I've had quite a few clients say to me 2 things have happened for them in the last 2 weeks. One, they've realized that they're not invoicing for jobs that they've completed because the program that they're using to manage their business on a daily basis isn't set up correctly. And historically, they've never looked at it because they're making enough money. But they've gone and acid tested half a dozen different things like variations, or they've actually gone and tested individual stock items that might have been initially purchased for sale, and they've traced it all the way through to make sure that has it been sold for the correct price? Is my team changing the invoice amount? Maybe it could be the case that there's some cash happening that's not getting deposited in your business. All of a sudden, everyone's looking for, am I accurately capturing my sales? In addition to that, I'm seeing clients on the other side talk about stock control. And these processes are really good ways of being able to establish, hang on a sec, shit, there's been 100 grand a month worth of raw materials or stock that's been walking out of my business. Working capital management, so I've spoken about these. These are things for the moment that we will not go over in detail because I want to get to the meaty stuff. Medical equipment, okay, is your business financially viable? Here's the meaty stuff, folks. What is break even? Break even, very important concept. Break even is at the point in which your income exactly covers the cost of running your business. If your business is operating at break even, you are not making a profit or a loss. There's a couple of things that I will add here. Break even as of today looks even more different because what does break even look like when I take out or defer some of my payment obligations that currently exist? That is things like loans to banks. That is things like changes to how much I'm paying my team members. That is payments to the ATO. All of a sudden, what is that and how does that change or not? In addition, the next concept is my cost that I had at Christmas could be different to what I have now. So if I'm looking at my historical information, I may already realize that there are changes in relation to that. 3 years, as an owner, I may stop taking money out of the business. If I stop taking money out of the business, my break even will change even more. 4 is, what does my break even look like once I've completed those things when factoring into account stimulus payments from the government? The government's already said they're going to cover up to $100,000 in PAYG withholding over the next 6 months, which will help as employers reduce our payroll obligations. Secondary to that, there is talk of the, not talk, there is the JobKeeper and Job Seeker principles, which PS, by the way, I called it on Sunday. Those of you that didn't see it, check out Facebook. There's a 90-second clip from my Sunday webinar, which says the government would do something like that. They did it on Monday. So all of a sudden that changes what my break even looks like again. Our starting point to cut through the noise is to ignore all that shit. Let's just pretend that COVID-19 doesn't exist. And we're going to pretend COVID-19 doesn't exist in the first instance because everything's so fucking overwhelming that we don't want to stress ourselves out further. Let's put ourselves in a mindset which is, I come back in the new year, I'm finally going to take control of some of these things and really look at them in more detail. And we would have been following this process anyway. This is not a new process. It's been around for a long time. It's now just making people understand it more because things are tighter. Once we've understood what that break even is like, we can then, I'm trying to work out the hand thing. I'm like the Queen, hello there. We can then peg back with all those extra things. This is the big one, folks. Where is it? Right there. This is the reason people don't like to do this process. I've seen so many business partners. I've seen so many husband and wives. I've seen so many variants where because of this principle, we've had dissolution of business, we've had business dispute, we've had divorce, because people actually have to be prepared to confront the brutal facts. And those brutal facts are, maybe your business isn't traveling in the direction that you thought it was. Those brutal facts are, maybe you need to make some changes in your business that you know you need to make, but the pain's not there. How did I frame the start of this meeting? I framed the start of this webinar with the concept of change and the formula for change. Maybe your dissatisfaction wasn't enough because you knew it meant you'd have to spend money on investing in a software platform. You knew it meant you had to spend money on advertising. This is a big one. You knew you had to make changes in relation to your personal spending habits. There's a bunch of very big speakers out there that talk a huge game, but the principle is the same. Do you really need that extra holiday? Or could it be the case that you could be taking that money and investing it in your business so that you can tighten up on these things? I've said to people so many times, a good business generates a 20 to 30% ROI. If you're prepared to live in a situation where you can keep the minimum amount coming out of your business, and yes, we all have commitments and obligations and a standard of life that we all need to get through, because we have family members we need to support. We have kids we need to support. We have school fees we need to support. We have all of those things. Where does that equation sit relative to it impacting on your business's ability? I say to clients so many times, I've seen them balk at spending $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $50,000, $500 even. I've seen clients balk at spending $500 that turn over $100,000 a month. $500 a month, they will balk on wanting to do this process and they won't see value in it. I've had those same clients or potential clients or people I've known in general ring me and now they want to do it, which is great, absolutely great. But 2 less dinners a month, a slightly different car, whatever that is, or making sure your mortgage payments and commitments are in the right space, all of that can contribute to helping you get through this. And as much as everyone's stressed at the moment, it's an opportunity for you to look at your own life. I had my business banker, Ange Trudgett from NAB, down at Burleigh. Awesome relationship manager and business banker. She gave me some great advice during the week. She said, James, everyone is doing a stock take on life right now. That's what this is. This is a stock take on life. I'm doing it in my own life. I just actually finally looked at my private health insurance on the weekend and decided I'm paying far too much for it. I've got things on there that I'm never going to use. This is an opportunity for us to confront those brutal facts. It sucks, but you need to work out, do you want to get through this or do you want to keep your head in the sand? The ostrich principle is not the time for now. And as a business owner, you do not want to live in that environment. This is actually what business is. So let's confront the brutal facts. What are the brutal facts? Here it is, folks. If we come over to, that's a budget and forecast. No, yeah, it's page 8. This is what we need to do. Review our fixed costs from the last 12 months and estimate what they are for the next 12 months. If you don't know where to start, it doesn't fucking matter. It's really, really important that you just start. And the easiest way to start, folks, is by getting a little spreadsheet. Literally, let's just get a new tab. Let's blow this up a bit. And starting is as easy as costs. Okay, I know every month I have a car to pay for, or car one. I know I have car two. I know I have car three. Great, I've sorted that out. Now, I know every month I need fuel. I know every month I have a phone. I know every month I've got rent. I know every month I have staff team costs. We don't call them staff, we call them team members because we're a family. I know every month I've got bank fees. Well, we don't have them anymore. No more. And so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. It does not need to be organized in an accounting way. Write it down. That's all you need to do, folks. This one is a big one. It's actually kind of like Scott Pate, the Barefoot Investor. He talks about doing this at a personal level in one of his chapters. Make it date night. It's called something like that. This is an opportunity for you to sit down with your financial controller, with your CFO, with your bookkeeper, with your general manager, with your wife, with your girlfriend, with your husband, with your boyfriend, whoever that is, whoever that confidant is, parent, son, sit down with them and write this out. If you're not sure which category it falls into, that's fine. This is a weekly expense. This is a monthly expense. Sorry, this is a fortnightly expense. This is a monthly expense. This is a quarterly expense. This is a biannual expense. This is an annual expense. Guess what, folks? Rocket science. This is total. Very simply, we add all of these things up. Obviously, for weekly, that would need to be multiplied by 52, fortnightly 26, monthly 12, biannually, blah, blah, blah. It is that easy to get a handle on your costs. We also don't realize, folks, when we do this, just how much shit costs. I've done that in my own business in the last month, and I got a bit of a rude shock over 2 or 3 things. Turns out I go to Dan Murphy's a bit more than I thought. So that's something for me to be mindful of, right? The April Fool's joke yesterday about Dan Murphy's being shut was ridiculous, by the way. That is the way for us to review our fixed costs. I dare you, in fact, I double dare you to do this in your personal life. You can do exactly the same thing. Yes, you need money to live at your own life. How about you use this as an opportunity, folks, to be able to use this as your own life? I haven't seen anything in the Q&A yet, folks, which I'm okay with, but in anticipation of some questions, I just want to know that that bot is working. So can someone just bang in a question there? There's some smart asses in this group. Yep, perfect. Thank you. Type answer. Here you go. All right. So it's as simple as that. Let's do that in both our business and at home, and do it with someone who's going to be honest with you. Don't fucking lie. If you're registered for GST, really important, all of these numbers, we need to get clear, is it Inc or ex-GST? It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. You need to be consistent in this approach. So that's what we do. You review your fixed costs. In addition to reviewing those costs, you need to look at, in those costs, do I need to, I think there's 3 principles to this: cut, keep, or improve. So if you're paying for one of those 3, do you really need it? Maybe not. Fuck it off. Defer it. Netflix, Stan. I got rid of my Stan subscription yesterday. I haven't watched Stan in 6 fucking months. Get rid of it. Piss it off. You can get it back. Don't get rid of your accountant. You need us. We've got some big announcements early next week that we're going to be talking about to support all of our clients through this time, which will include free pieces of things. But get rid of it. Keep it. Can you find a better way to do it? Does that mean you can do it internally? I know quite a few clients who have said, okay, I'm going to find other ways to keep people on by being able to help me in other aspects of my business or other aspects of my life. I know I've had that conversation internally here with my PA. If it's the case that things do quiet down, then what are the things that I potentially need help with that she can help me with? So do we need to keep it? Do we need to change providers? Is there a better provider that can give you a better outcome? Now, this is an opportunity to remind you, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait until you fire an amateur. Don't go out and buy the cheapest fucking thing. Really important. Just make sure that whatever you're doing in your business, it's important. Insurance is a classic example. So many clients set up insurance policies with whoever their broker is back in the day. They initially do it. Every year that renewal comes around and they don't do anything with it because they're so busy. They just fucking sign it and send it back. Has your business changed? Do you have more equipment? Do you have less equipment? Are you in different industries? Have you got more staff? Have you got less? Is how you deal with your business different? There's a reason UE made money, besides the fact that I'm not convinced that that's a great product, but they cut the guts out of their policies and tailored them. A good insurance broker, in fact, fuck good, we don't do good. A great insurance broker should be holding your hands the entire way through and saying, right, where are we currently at? Are you covered? Are you not? Are you paying too much? Or should you be paying the same amount and getting more? If you need an insurance broker, Joe Kloss, All-Purpose Business Insurance, I can give you her details afterwards. Encourage that phone call. Get on the phone to your broker and start having a chat to them about reviewing those things. Critically important to be insured too. So don't suddenly start turning to shit products or trying to cut corners just because. Also waving the flag, this is general advice, not financial, legal or accounting specific, insurance specific advice. Give yourself a birthday on all those things. Look at all those suppliers. So that's what we've done there. Then work out how to shave 10% off that, which I've kind of spoken about. The next step, once we have a total number over in this corner here, it's very simple. So let's just pretend that we add all these things up and all these things end up in a situation where we are at 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Format, number, here we are. Okay. They're my total fixed costs for the year. Then I'm going to divide that into the month. Equals that divided by 12. Then I'm going to divide that per week. So this will be per week. For those playing at home, depending upon how cute you want to get, we can either say that there are 4.33 weeks in a month, or we can be cute and we can say a week when we go, it's the case that we have some weeks which are 4-week months. Is it a 4-week or is it a 5-week month? So that'll change that number. And then we can work out how many days we're open. So if you're open 6 days a week, if we calculate 6 days a week, let's do some simple math on that. 6 days a week by 52 weeks. It'd help if I knew how to use Excel. It's 312 days a year. Guess what? Equals that divided by 312. That's where I'm at on my fixed cost front. Now I know. Now, because this is in a spreadsheet, you can dial it up or dial it down. Calculate our average margin. This is a really interesting one, and it's a really interesting one because there's a lot of people that don't really understand this. Our average margin is, as I said, it is the number of widgets, product, or stock relative to a specific sale. You will find that in your accounts somewhere. And so for the moment, what you want to do to calculate that margin is simply take that cost per month for the last 8 months and divide that by the total sales. So in this situation here, equals sum 1, 2. My total variable cost is 675,000. If I want to work out what that margin is, I know as a simple example, and I might change these numbers to highlight it for you folks. Number, because I always like to talk in tens of thousands because that makes our life easier. Let's zero that out. Let's make this 2 million. And let's get rid of these and let's make that 600,000. Here you go. Welcome to live TV, folks. I'm doing this on the fly. Oops. Cut. Paste. So in this scenario, I've sold $2 million worth of product. Actually, I'm going to put this over here. Cut. Paste. So I've sold $2 million worth of product. It's cost me 600,000. So as a result, I have a leftover profit before all of my fixed costs of 1.4 million. Oops. Minus. Guys, don't try and use a wireless keyboard. Equals 1 minus that number. So I know, based on every $10,000 in sales, I'll change this equation. I know that for every $10,000 in sales, it costs me $3,000. After that, I've made $7,000. So my average margin is 70%. That shouldn't be a number. It should be a percent. Percentage, there we go. To then work out, based on that margin, and this is where this gets a bit difficult if I have staff, because or subcontractors, because what you then need to exchange is, if I'm a builder, for example, and I have subbies specific to jobs versus having office staff would be deemed a fixed expense. Specific staff members to specific jobs would be deemed a variable expense. So you need to split your payroll out. Right? That can again be easily done through simply the use of a spreadsheet. So in this business, their average margin is 70%. If their total fixed costs are $1 million, 0.7, that divided by that means they need to make format numbers. I need $1.4 million in sales because I know that on $1.4 million in sales, my variable costs specific to the job are $428,000. Number use because it's 30%. 30% of my total sales here, folks, equals my variable costs. That will leave me with a profit of $1 million. That $1 million will pay for my $1 million in fixed expenses. I can then work backwards to establish what are my monthly sales, what are my weekly sales, what are my daily sales. Monthly sales, that divided by 12. Weekly sales, that divided by 50, equals that divided by 52. Daily sales equals that divided by 312 days I'm open. So I know in this scenario, folks, I've got $3,205 of fixed costs to keep my business open. How do I make sure I'm going to earn enough to cover those fixed costs? I need to make $4,578 in sales for the day because $4,578 in sales will cost me, equals that multiplied by 0.3. $1,300, which will leave me with a profit of 3.2 to cover that off. This margin concept, folks, is really important to use and average. A lot of you will sell different stock at different margins or different product at different margins. And that's where it gets super confusing. The most important thing when you start this break even is to use the average. Look at the last 9 months. Look at last year's results. What can affect averages? Well, the US dollar, for example, that's kind of proving difficult at the moment. We had a client who ripped up $100,000 last month because of the change in the exchange rate relative to the order in November last year and got smashed on the spot rate. What can also affect my average margin? Are you selling a low volume, high margin product, or are you selling a low volume, high margin product? Which one is that? And this can specifically be broken down per style of product sold and what that is. That is more of a deep dive in a specific module, but is something that can be obtained. Use your average margin for the moment so that you can get to these numbers. Right, calculate sales to cover variable costs. And we come back over into our slide. This is an example of our break-even. So we've just been through that. So in this break-even example, we've got sales of $1 million, cost of sales of 700. They have 300 left over. So their gross profit margin is 30%, fixed overheads of 200, net profit of 100. Now, here's the exciting bit. Once we know those numbers, we can actually plug it into a budget and a forecast. That's where the rubber really meets the road, and that's where it gets tricky. Because at that point, we now know if these are our historical numbers, we can then start to plan for March. We can then, if I could spell March, April, and so on and so on and so on. All of our fixed costs we know, so we can import them here, and we can change this every single month. It just needs to be in a spreadsheet, guys. The best way to start is to start. We can get all those fixed costs in. We can create an adjustment at the bottom specifically for stimulus measures. So that can actually be an income code. So we might have normal income. Then we're going to have PAYG relief. Any other potential grants available to us. And all of a sudden, if we start considering, well, hang on, I've got an extra 25, 1, 2, 3, or 20 going into that account every month. I absolutely hate spreadsheets that don't have separators on them. And very quickly, folks, we can map these things out. What's our average margin? So in this example, we know it's 30%. That's going to give us a gross profit. The average margin is going to be a bit, we'll actually have to adjust for that because that will be extraordinary income that won't form part of our normal income. Fixed costs. Advertising, accounting, bank, cleaning, etc., 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 etc. And we can very quickly build that out, folks. This is the stuff you want to share with your team. How do we do that? Maybe it's the case that you establish here by virtue of looking at this. What are the wage reductions that may need to go on in your business to help you get through those next 3 months? There's PAYG relief I'll be talking about on Sunday. If I insert general, just insert down. There's also talk of JobKeeper relief. How much is that worth to your business per month? $750 per week by 4 weeks by 10 employees. What does that suddenly look like? And if we include those things, where does it go? How do I get JobKeeper? What's the definition of 30%, 50%? I'll be going over that on Friday. Treasury still haven't released the finer points of those definitions. What happens if my business didn't previously start? There was some really good news this morning that spoke about if your business is a startup, then it's the case that they will look at including you in those calculations. So we can create some spreadsheets, folks, quite easily, which can put together for you what that looks like. This information, in the ultimate world, you can use your financial data here to get that information into here. A lot of clients don't look at this because it scares the shit out of them, and they might realize that there's a negative at the bottom, and there's a negative at the bottom because there's far too much in their own spending habits. Right? Or we're just not entering the data correctly, or we're not getting the margin that we want. So let's use this data to marry to that data, and there is a process and mechanism for doing that. That's half a day, realistically, to go through that in a webinar. I'm going to look at producing that in an hour next week as well. That's where we're at in relation to what our budget and forecast can look like. We can then break that down, folks, as our budget and forecast. We can again break this down into sales per day. What do our sales for the day need to be? We can adjust for seasonality if need be. We can adjust for the fact that we're going to clear out a whole heap of stock at a lesser price right now to get more sales. That's where we're looking at with our budget and forecast. Top 5 reasons we need a budget. So if we go over the page. So we estimate our sales budget. So it can allow you to also put your sales team under the pump and give them revised targets. Helps plan for the team. It helps assist our cash, motivation, allows us to manage our business better. Talking about builders. 6 steps for calculating that budget and forecast. So I've overlaid that on page 10. We estimate our sales, adjust for variation, use our average margin, review our fixed costs, and estimate them for the next 12 months. A guesstimate is good enough. You're going to get to the end of the first month and realize you're close or you're not. Budgets can change. They are flexible. The starting point is to start. Timmy's got clients that he works with. Sometimes they revise their budgets on a weekly basis based on where they're at. They're an SEO-based spend business, as an example. So what are we doing this week? Are we dialing it up or are we dialing it down? Where's our bang for our buck? Once we've done that, we can set up that 4-month forecast, which can simply be a spreadsheet. We will have a template for this that we can give you. If you are interested in that template, please email the email address that we're going to have up at the end, which for everyone on here, I'll put it's info@mwmadvisory.com.au. Hit that email address. Share your budgets, share your break even. The other thing with break even, guys, is your break even could include how much money you need to take out of the business to live. That's another way of looking at it. Well, if you need 5 grand, if you need 50 grand, if you need 500 grand a month to live, okay, well, let's factor that into account in the budget. I've then spoken about at the end 5 ways to increase our gross profit. I'll go through this very quickly, folks, because it's extremely hard at the moment for everyone to increase gross profit, but I just want to get everyone thinking about it. This is an example where we've had a growth in net profit of 50%. And the way that we've done that is simply by reducing fixed costs by 10% and increasing our top line by 10%. So as you can see here, we've managed to sell we've managed to sell 10% more at 10% better margin with 10% less fixed costs. All of a sudden, my profit goes from 100 to 150. That's an ideal way of looking at things. I appreciate that the world is not that easy at the moment. The concept here is to give you framework. These are things that we should be looking at irrespective of COVID-19. Here's another great example for our sales teams. Number of leads, conversion rates, number of customers, average dollar sale, number of sales. What does that equal? Look at this, by using a 10% metric, folks. 10% more leads and 10% higher on the conversion rate. There's 84 more customers. 10% increased average sale increases our total sales by 46% in a month. Profit driver, look what's happened to profit. Profit has doubled. Profit's doubled because I've increased my sales from 1 million to 1.4. No, it's not going to let me go back. However I do that. Stay with me, folks. Top 5 ways. Yeah, there we are, folks. So we've increased our sales to 1.4. 1.4 here. We managed to reduce those fixed costs and look at that final result. Top 5 strategies for why, knowing your margins. Guys, this takes time. That's the other thing everyone needs to realize. Like what I say at the start, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait until you fire an amateur. You want to be a professional. That means you need to commit a whole day to this shit. It seems boring and mundane, but we're business owners, we're business leaders. We should be doing this. Know your margins, price for profit. These are all things around confronting the facts. Make sure you're efficient, effective, and productive. Set the team targets and reward people for selling big margin products and services. Obviously, that's a bit more difficult at the moment, but these are also tools you can take into where you're going from here. We can then break that down into averages for the day, the week, the month, and the year. We can create margins per product and service, and we've got a budget versus actual. This middle one's really important, folks. Average is the most important. Average, average, average. I think at that point, we know your margins, consistency, easy to buy, wow factor, top 3 strategies, your one thing. Okay, we'll get out of that. From there, folks, the next thing I want to share with you, Timmy, I'll get this up on, I'll get this up on my screen here just so that it's easy. And do you want to step in and start talking at this point, guys? Whilst we do, have we got anything on the Q&A side? Everyone's been a bit quiet now. Hopefully everyone's still there and can hear us. Yep. Okay, we're all there. So the chat box in the middle, guys, if you've got any questions, all good. Okay, folks. I think an important thing to add at the end here is we're doing our best to help business owners through this, and I'll step over to you, Timmy, at this point in time for what you and the team are doing.
Yeah, thanks, James. So hopefully everyone can hear me. If someone can just punch into the web chat that they can hear me okay, that'd be helpful. Great. Thanks, Sky. Yeah, look, just I know I'm just conscious of time, just to distill things down. So the important thing about all this is the why, right? Why is MWM pushing out knowing your numbers, right? First and foremost, before we're on the bandwagon about what's in it for you with the stimulus, right? James made a really good point. It's been a theme, but I just want to distill it. You've got to know your numbers. Yes, you've got to get your books and records up to date for your BASs and the like to get a lot of this stimulus, but you've got to know your numbers to understand what impacts this stimulus will have on your business. Once you understand that, then you can make decisions, right? This is where MWM will do things slightly differently to other accounting firms. We're not just bombarding clients with information about what you're going to get. That's coming, right? We want you to know your numbers. So what are MWM doing to help? The points on screen, James has covered what break even is. That second paragraph, important message there, it's a baseline, right? If you understand your break even, if you understand what your baseline is, then you can move forward off that under various trading scenarios, right, which James has spoken about. So the virtual CFO team, right, we're making ourselves available. We've got data organizers, we've got software gurus, we've got analysts and the like that can take your numbers and tell you stories about them that you may or may not be able to see. We're making that team available for very punchy, short-term, 2-hour sessions. We'll do that virtually. Okay, we want to help you work through that scenario, like what James just did. Now I can imagine James doing those break-even calcs when he was 7 years old, wandering around northwestern Australia. Very easy for James. It's a little bit more difficult for the rest of us that are in business. But we in the CFO team want to partner with you. Book a virtual 2-hour call. You can see the prices, right? $500 plus GST for everyone. However, for our existing NWM client base, we'll do that at a far reduced $350 plus GST. Okay. Now, how will that work? What's kind of your experience through this? James, can you just go to the next slide, please?
Yeah, Tim.
This is the infograph.
Oh, hang on.
So the first point on this infograph, once it comes up, is the good news is that you don't need like that Excel spreadsheet that everyone just saw. You don't need your data highly organized, right? That was the point that James made. We can help you come up with your break even, putting numbers down on the back of an envelope, right? Whatever it takes, we can get there. So don't feel that you need all your data, all your books and records squeaky clean and up to date. We understand some reorganization may be needed, but we can just work through that in a simple spreadsheet or back of an envelope. Okay, that's the first point. Second point, the 2-hour investment, right? That's that virtual conversation that we'll have with you, right? There'll be 3 pieces to it. Firstly, you'll be educating us. You'll educate us on your business life cycle. What that means is what James touched on with how do you drive your income? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? What does your expenditure look like? Again, that frequency piece, right? We need to understand the ebbs and flows, the matching of your ins and outs of your business, right? That's very important to get a good break-even number. We'll obviously then reiterate the message around what that break-even, how it's calculated, right? How we apply the model to your situation, to your business. Then let us go away and take that extra step just to make sure those calcs are, to that 80 to 90%. We understand that, time is money, but we want to take that extra bit of time just to get it that 80, 90% right for you. Okay, that's that second point. What's next, right? And this is the whole why. Why are we doing this? Why are MWM pushing this know your numbers instead of letting you know how to go and get that apprentice subsidy, right? What's next? We want that baseline. We want that break even so we can help you understand what the COVID-19 stimulus, how that impacts your business, right? We plug those numbers into the model, right? It all then falls out to help you make decisions. Point 2 is a variant. We can do all sorts of scenarios, right? If you do have something that's selling better than something else, we push that in the model. What does that look like? We can help you come up with better profitability figures depending on what product mix you have, right? All those different scenarios. So they're the next steps, right? Once we get through this break even, right? I think that's the key message. Thanks, James.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tim. I'm just going to put it in the Zoom chat thing too, folks, which will stop that share. I think yes or no. And I'll just sign off, folks, by saying hit info@mwmadvisory.com.au if that's something that you want to look at and explore as we can get everyone through this. Really appreciate everyone's time, folks. We've run 13 minutes overboard, which by my standards is only 10%. Yeah, Marcus, I'll have a conversation with you offline about that. And I'll be talking about that again on Sunday. So, folks, thanks very much for your time. We're 10% over. Feel free to go back through this and digest it in more detail. And we'll go from there. I'm trying to think of what extra things to say, except hang in there, guys. It's hard. I understand it's hard. We all want to get through this, and we're all in this together. I made that statement on day one when this stuff started happening. Everyone's doing this scattergun approach and ducking for cover. We're all in this together, unlike a lot of things. As a result, we need to manage those relationships accordingly. And maybe it's not quite as bad as we think in terms of how we can get through. Will we be emailing a copy? I'm not sure what the copy is, Tash. Waiting. We're emailing a copy of the video. Yeah, Tash. So I said at the start, this video will be up on our YouTube channel. It's also on Facebook, and it's recorded on Facebook, so you can go back and look at all of these. So any of the video stuff that we're doing will always be there. Thanks very much, folks. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned. Keep ripping in. Let's lean into it. It's time to get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. Thanks very much, Timmy, for all your hard work, brother. I really appreciate it. Let's make a dent in all this stuff. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, James. Thanks, everybody.